Hey, everyone. Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today. She's been a creative since she was little and was creative director at Google's Creative Lab from 2007 to 2023. Now she runs a creative advisory and freelances as a creative coach for agencies or studios. Please join me in welcoming Tea Uglow. Welcome.
Hi,
Are you ready for 20 questions?
I am ready for 20 questions, sure.
Great. Question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Um, I do lots of things. I'm a founder of a startup in the B2B game space. I'm a creative futurist, I guess. I tend to um tend to exist in spaces that are about 5 to 10 years out and spend a lot of time wondering why we're not doing this or doing that. And I write about unthinkable things. Um, which, or maybe not unthinkable, but certainly like um unsayable things, controversial ideas.
Great. And just a quick note for the audience, if you guys are interested in 2025 big episodes, check out the episode with industrial designer Kareem Rashid. Question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Um, I think a key piece of knowledge that makes me different is that I'm trans. I've spent half my life as with male privilege and half my life without. I actually know what male privilege is. It's a very interesting thing. It's very difficult, I think, for men to understand because you don't know. If you've never known, you've never seen, and you can never step away from that, you can't understand it. And if you're female, you may well understand it, but you don't understand what it is like to have it. It's a bit like white privilege, I guess. But from a business perspective, my kind of the thing that I find more interesting is that I'm about five, that thing that I was saying earlier, I tend to live about 5 years ahead of adoption cycles, which is a bit of a curse really, because you know, you there have been things like NFTs or well, I worked at Google for 20 years. So a lot of technology comes sooner, earlier. You see Google do it all the time. A lot of their graveyard is really just that they're a bit ahead of their curve rather than behind it. Um, that's probably what I fitted in there.
Great. Question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Um, my work over the last 20 years is I did an art degree, really, and then I didn't like the art world, and it was 93 and we were doing 30 years actually. Um we were doing a lot of early internet stuff. So it was when the web was just getting going. So there was a lot of early web art. I've been very interested in technology from since I was tiny. Then I did an MBA. So I'm an artist lacking a category, really. Like we've never really had a space for artists who work in and I'm sure any artist who works in tech will understand how frustrating it is that we just don't have spaces to reflect or support those artists, that side of our culture. It just isn't there. You can go to the ballet, you can go to the opera any night of the week, um, but we've had 30, 40 years now of being a culture that is completely dominated by technology, and yet we don't have any way of supporting or working with the artists that work in that space. It's very interesting to me.
Mm, Perfect. Question four, some people struggle with. The question is, what does your future look like?
My future personally, or the future generally?
Either or.
I think the future generally is actually just a matter of perspective because we don't know. So the future generally is either good or bad. Is either good or bad actually, depending entirely on your perspective, depending on certain contexts, like demographics, um, and where you are coming from. Um, My perspective at the moment is really interesting. My future is really, really curious. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm not. I'm always looking for work. I'm always looking for um opportunities to do interesting things. So as normal, um, I don't know what the future holds for me, or for anyone else. I mean, we could go into quite some depth on what the future holds for it within certain categories like technology or politics or um, games, especially, which really interests me at the moment. But yeah, I think I can see why that stumps some people.
Great. Five we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Um, I don't think and the I love where I am. I'm in Australia. I mean, I love where I am physically. I mean, I find it geopolitically very complicated, because it's stolen land and we acknowledge that and do nothing about it. So place is very important, I think, in some ways, but really it's about context, not place. Like this place, as I said, I love. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I love it here. And I love living here. But the context of living here is very difficult.
Mm.
Because and it's the same wherever you are. It's the same when you're in New York or California or London or Europe or Russia or Singapore or Brazil, like wherever you are in the world, Argentina. Um, the context is what creates place, what creates a sense of significance. Um, place is like a kind of is more like a sort of bracketing, a way of bracketing, a generalization of the context that you are in, defined by your geographic location, because people in that geographic location have these contextual qualities. But I think it's really interesting. But I've always struggled. Again, it's one of those things where it's a generalization and it's just a generalization that we assume and take for granted rather than picking apart the specific contexts that make us make that generalization.
Mm.
That's what place means to me.
Great. So if you were to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Oh no, I mean, the problem, Thomas, is being trans and autistic is that life is quite hard. So I'm not sure most 50%, even today, 50% of trans kids attempt suicide. And in the 1980s and 90s, it was pretty bad. So like it's been a very tough life. I would not want to start from scratch. And if I wanted to start from scratch, I would I would I would not I would not. But if you want in a more lighthearted manner, like the opportunities that I've missed, um, I was someone in I was given a have mainly been investment ones. They're stupid things. They're like shares, you know. It's like I did part of my MBA was on Apple in 2003, and I really I believed in the principles and the and the and I didn't invest. Likewise, when I found out about BTC, which was in about 2014, 2015, and it was more about crypto actually. It was Ethereum and Bitcoin, and back then it was not quite so dominant, but I really believed in it. Um, and I would still have gone bust if I'd cared, but um, it was a very interesting thing. It's like I really believed in it then,
Mm.
and I didn't understand the cycles, but I didn't invest in that either. I did invest actually. I invested a tiny, tiny bit, which I sort of did by accident, and that's actually the best way to invest in risk assets, because a tiny, tiny bit turns into a bit more. And then the other thing I did, which I would advise myself is to always say yes. I've had really interesting opportunities in my life that I've missed um because I didn't um take them seriously. Like I had a lovely call from the guy that founded Canva about 15 years ago. And I'm like, and I never took it. I didn't call them back. I mean a call. I mean a LinkedIn, like whatever. But in the old days, it would have been a call, and really didn't call them back, which is basically what it was. And I feel a bit silly about that.
Great. Okay, number seven. What's a day in your life like?
I sit in my garden. I have a very slow. I love my life. It's very slow at the moment. I have my children who are chaos agents. Um, but they live with their mother. So I most of my days I sit in my garden, I code, I cycle to either the office if I need to go and do officey things, or my studio if I have time and inclination. Um, that's I mean it's a very at the moment I'm doing a lot of writing and a lot of coding in the back garden with a cup of coffee. And a day lasts as long as the day needs to last. It's not a I don't have a structured day. Um, as in, but what I don't do is I don't have like that work-life separation thing because as has always been the case, I do what I love and I love what I do, and I never really quite see the difference. We're doing whatever we need to do. I'm also playing a lot more games now, partly because of my kids and partly because I think games are um a fascinating business area. That's and I actually just think they're a media, they're a form of media that we are um massively underutilizing.
Mhm. Nice. Eight is around lifelong learning as a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
I oh that's interesting. I mean, I suppose that's what I was sort of just saying. It's like I don't think I I I don't if I'm not up to date on something that I'm interested in, then I'm probably not that interested in it.
Mm,
I think it's again, I'm not a disciplined, as you know, Thomas.
mm,
I'm not a disciplined person in terms of time or um process or system, but I'm pretty voracious. At the moment, I'm learning C++, plus plus, which is probably not something you should do when you're 50. But I really wanted to understand blueprints and I really wanted to because I really wanted to understand Unreal Engine. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so I can build these things in Unreal Engine. How do I do this? How do I do that? And then I had to go back to something which I've avoided for a very long time, which is actually learning to code. Um, but it's sort of like the most absurd backdoor entry into you know into it. And I will never be good, but the point is that at the moment the thing that interests me about it is that if I want to tell people what to do, I need to know what can be done. That's
mm,
why, I learn any language, whether it's Python or HTML. Um, it's always really about understanding systems. Because if you don't understand the system, then it's very unreasonable of you to ask others to manipulate it in ways that you can't comprehend what they're doing.
mm,
Um, and that's pretty much how most, I think, creativity and art works in the world today. It's really, you don't have to be good at it, but you do have to understand what it is you're doing. And it's one of the great difficulties with AI that it opens up difficulties. So no, that's another space of lifelong learning. I love AI. I hate AI. I have done for about, oh, 2015 is when I started getting very interested in what we called machine learning at the time. Um, it's I've screamed about it, shouted about it, and sat down about it. Like every topic I pick up, you want to get so vested in that you come away with a sense of like no knowledge, and also you come away with a sense of the fact that knowledge changes. It's one of the great tragedies of gender culture is that everybody believes that they have it's a static science. It's not a static science. It's a social science. Um, and yet, that's one of the reasons people have such polarizing arguments is because they have never considered for a moment that the science can move, or the science can change, or that opinions can change, or that attitudes can change, or it's a very, and it goes both ways. So that pendulum, everything, all knowledge is on a pendulum, really, apart from, no, I'll put physics on a pendulum as well.
mm. Perfect. Nine is about tools. You talked about digital. Do you use analog tools as well?
Um, yeah, I am a yes, I do. I like I keep a notepad. I keep a notebook because I've tried to keep notes every other way. Um, um, actually, I'm moving. I've decided, well, not decided. I'm trying to move to less centralized tools, if that makes sense.
Mm,
So I tend to use a lot of stuff that I do back it up. I think actually to iCloud at the moment. It's another one of those ones where like, you've got to think the tools are there's all the Google Workplace stuff, there's the Apple iCloud stuff, there's the Dropbox stuff. That's actually a baseline of like where your office is. And you can't really, or you shouldn't really avoid it because we create so much data. But it's quite confusing if you duplicate your office in two places or three places.
mm,
So I've been trying to cut that back. Um, it'd be helpful if they'd help, but they won't help. Um, obviously. And then I'm trying to use less centralized, less cloud-based services, less cloud-based services. So I use Drafts. Notion's pretty cloud-based actually. I wish it was less cloud-based because it's a very good tool. Scrivener for writing. Um, and then that's pretty much it actually. I basically work in Drafts and Notion. And yeah, like GitHub, I guess.
mm,
So um, and then fun things like all the different um GPT tools,
mm,
um, and Gmail and
mm,
Maps and everything on a phone. God, yeah. I mean, we're surrounded by tools. We have a million tools. It's very, very, very hard to get away from them.
mm,
Um, but if you have to, it turns out that a pencil and a piece of paper are still incredibly brilliant technology.
mm. Okay. Halfway number 10, you talked a bit about this, work-life balance, life-work balance. How do you deal with that?
Um, oh yeah, well, I don't worry about it until I don't like it, and then when I don't like it, I I think I wish I was more in control of how I deal with it, but I don't think I'm terribly in control of how I deal with it. So I just it's an autistic thing.
Mm,
I'm not happy when I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with it, and it's very very I think visible to everyone around me, and we either deal with it or I get fired.
mm,
But I think it's something that like it's something it's incredibly contextual and incredibly nuanced and incredibly personal, which is like, yeah, sure, work-life balance at some point, like slavery is basically just very bad work-life balance.
mm,
Um, and we have many forms of modern slavery, and we have terrible, terrible, you look back through history at the attempts to make work and the workplace work for people. I think we are not in a good place, to be perfectly honest.
mm.
We could do much better.
Great. 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
Um, Oh, I'd have been an illustrator. I mean, it's a kind of dead career option already now, so I'm probably quite glad I'm not. But like, I'd have been an illustrator. I think if I was starting again, a lot of what I do is not because this is kind of luck. I don't understand how I got up into this big abstract layer of thinking and making big things. I imagine that I would be a games. I mean, that's what I'm learning at the moment. It's like, I'm learning Blender and 3D and a lot of CAD stuff in order to make games in Unreal Engine.
Mm.
And then because I want to do things in Unreal Engine, I'm learning my C++. And, I guess I would probably be in that sort of space.
Great. 12, what would you not like to do with your career?
I found corporate life really toxic.
Mm,
And it's got not, I mean, it's like Severance. I think Severance is actually just a brilliant, brilliant example of showing people very, very clearly that what our behavior, how we are and who we are at work is so alien to us that we probably wouldn't like those people. Um, and that's the thing that I find very resonant after my time at Google, which is that I don't want to be in a job where I'm being asked to make decisions that I wouldn't take.
nice. How about a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Oh, at the moment, Sigma. Sigma's a big. Oh, it's a kid word. Sigma.
And a least favorite word, quote, or sentence.
Loads. I use it all the time. I hate it. I love it. I hate it. Oh, and that and literally, which is also a love-hate word, because I literally use literally all the time. But I think there are very few words that literally mean not literally.
You're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
Um, oh, eclectic,
What
autistic, eclectic, probably.
and what keeps you up at night?
Um, it seems very silly, but like whatever I'm really interested in when night falls, it's I don't have long-term daily preoccupations or long-term. I have daily preoccupations, but I don't have like long-term preoccupations. I'm 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 upset at how trans people are scapegoated. It seems to me really stupid. That does bother me a lot. Um, but I understand why scapegoats exist, so it's not something that keeps me up at night.
Great. And how about a dream you're chasing?
Never having to worry about the price of mangoes.
What inspires you?
Wikipedia.
Any advice you'd like to share?
Hide the spinach in the mashed potato and do what you love and love what you do.
And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you and what's our call to action?
Um, I don't know. Actually, I used to say, "Oh, I'm all over the internet," and I thought I'm all over the internet, but like I'm not. As I get older, I'm increasingly like not, and I'm increasingly like I'm not sure I want people to keep tabs on me. Um, I it's unfortunately increasingly my like trans visibility is not a thing. Trans people just want to be invisible.
Mm.
But I am mainly all over the internet, so you know I'm still there. My footprint's still pretty large.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining today. Um, the scheduling is always difficult, but we managed to do it, so I'm super
You
glad.
did. Thank you, Thomas. I'm so sorry. Children in time zones are a nightmare.
It's okay.
Um,
Thanks so
but
much.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.